Hey, I'm Riley, and this is Ed, and we're with the band Thrice.
Try and keep me out of sight. You try and keep me out of sight and out of mind.
And we're here with the Bronx. And Teenage Wrist. And we are going to talk about our best, first, and worst mosh stories.
My kind of best, first, and worst mosh stories it's kind of all one together. We were playing South by Southwest. A long time ago. I think right when we first became a band, and we were playing at Emo's Inside, which if you've played Emo's Inside, that this story may make sense. The stage is about waist high, I would say, and we were playing, and I felt two hands on my ankles, and I was just gripping my ankles, and I looked down, and it was this dude in a wheelchair, and he was cruising around the mosh pit and just running people over. And it scared me to death, just because you just don't really expect to see somebody that's handicapped doing aggressive activity like moshing, and it actually became he ended up being in a really cool band from San Francisco called the Angry Amputees. The silver lining to the story is I met somebody cool and got turned on to a cool band, so that's kind of my all three in one sort of mosh pit story.
I'm the bass player from Coldplay, as you can see. But this my best mosh pit story. I don't know if this is a mosh pit story, but our singer Matt went out into the crowd at Reading Festival about 8 years ago, climbed the pole like almost all the way up, and he was like struggling to get up because it's like, you know, zigzag poles. Yeah. Well, so then he climbed all the way up and he jumped, and obviously people caught him. But ever since then, they put up like things so people can't climb up the poles. So that's my best one. The worst is when we played France at a festival. It was, I can't remember what song, but we stopped and everyone sat down. And it was supposed to be when we started, they all jumped up, but we didn't know what was happening, so we all sat down on stage. And then I don't even remember what happened. I think we just kind of yeah, we just like sat down. We're like, all right, what do we do now? And then we went back, and everyone's like, yeah, but we were like, you know, oh, we gotta get up. You know, we have our instruments, so that's my worst story.
I've been retired from moshing for probably 15 years. I think my first and best was Bad Religion at Santa Monica Civic Center, and it was just a massive pit, and it was cool because I got worked, but it was also one of those pits where people pick you up if you eat it, so that worked out. My worst, I think I went to see Strung Out at some tiny club in Fountain Valley, and I decided to stage dive at that show and was expecting the people in the pit to catch me, but they parted and I hit the cement floor and it sucked. That's my worst.
My first and worst is the same thing. I think it was before the Warped Tour existed. There was this thing that they called Board in Orange County. It was at this big like Olympic velodrome kind of thing where they race like track bikes. And the Dance Hall Crashers were playing, which is like a ska band, pretty mellow band. And I was like, oh, I can do this. I was probably 11 or 12, and I got destroyed. Like the kind, and I went with some like some sort of like a counselor group kind of thing, and I couldn't tell my parents, and I totally like ate crap and like had bruises all over me, and it was a ska band. So that was my first and worst. And I think my best was there's a place called Showcase Theater in Corona in California, and I went to my first like hardcore show, which was this band Strife, and it was the craziest thing I had ever seen. Like, I mean, I was young, and I just had to join. I got all over adrenalized and just ran in and didn't get as worked as I got at the ska show.
Worst. I was with my older brother, one of my older brothers, and we lied to our parents, said we were doing something, and we ended up going to a Les and Jake show. I think I was maybe 14 or 15. And the lie was discovered because in the pit, my brother got punched in the face, and I was split open. So I had to call my parents and say, we're at the Denver whatever hospital, like, you got to pick us up. And there was some dude sitting next to us in a dress with a bloody head. It was a whole thing. So there's that. My ska shows, I'm telling you, ska shows can be very fucking dangerous. It's the elbows. First pit for me was, I was 13, 99 Warped Tour, and the first band I went to go see. I grew up in Hawaii, so I didn't really get to see any shows. So this was when I first moved to Colorado, and the first show I went to was the Warped Tour, and I got to see the Living End, and that was really sick. And maybe, fuck it, this is the best, I'm going to say that. I went to go see Weezer in between Pinkerton and the Green Album, and I was crowd surfing. I felt this terrible pain in my nipple, just like right there, something was happening, and I looked down, there was some chick who I guess was very angry with me crowd surfing, was just chomping at me right there, and that's that. So that was fun. She bit me. Yeah, she bit me right there, so maybe that was the best. I don't know. Depends on how you look at it.
God, I'm not nearly that dark when I haven't been in those pits before. My first mosh pit experience, which probably was also one of my best, was for my first real punk rock club show was Goldfinger at the Fox Theater in Boulder, I want to say. And I don't know, I was like 15 years old, and you were probably there. Yeah, I probably saw you and didn't know who you were. But yeah, I'll never forget, just like John was up there, he reached my hand and he grabbed it and he held it for like 3 seconds, and I was like, oh, it's the best moment of my life. Let's see. So actually, I'm sorry to say this, guys, but the worst pit experience of my life was Thrice Warped Tour. Warped Tour 2003. Not because of you guys, but because there was a guy really trying to fight me, or fight everyone, I think, in the pit. And security guard kind of caught wind of it and looked my way, and I was like, it was him, he's trying to start the fight. But it didn't work. He pulled me out of the pit, and I got kicked out of that. I didn't get kicked out of Warped Tour, but they pulled me out of the pit, and they were like, go the fuck away, no more. So I didn't get to watch your whole set.
Well, now